Welcome back to After the Fact. Joining us now is Comelec spokesman, Director James Jimenez. Good evening, Director James Jimenez, and thank you for joining us again on the program.
Good evening. Thank you for having me.
I'd like to talk about this initiative by the Commission on Elections. This was started, I think, in 2019, or I think this was also thought of as early as 2016. The monitoring of campaign expenses online, especially in social media.
Right.
And by the end of the month, you set a deadline for political candidates and their supporters, if I'm not mistaken, to make a particular registration. What
right.
is that all about?
Yeah, we're asking the candidates and their campaigns to register the websites and blog sites that they're going to use for their campaign. Basically, we're asking them to let us know where they're going to put out their campaign ads so that it'll be easier for us to monitor them.
Okay, so what else do they need to register? For instance, Twitter accounts, Facebook pages, YouTube channels.
Everything online that they will use to pump out their campaign messages. So, for example, a candidate could have an official Twitter account. A candidate could also have a Facebook account at the same time, as well as a TikTok account, as well as a blog. Let's say with a www.name.com URL. Now they would have to register that as well. Basically, any online presence that they have should be registered.
That is attached to them. But what if they don't want to make it official? Let's say how they establish the link between a particular page or account and candidate.
Basically, you'll be looking at the pattern of use, right? If you see a website that isn't registered but is regularly churning out campaign messages, then there would be reason for the Comelec to take a second look at that website and to see that whether or not its behavior qualifies it as a campaign outlet, and then it will be treated properly.
Okay. So what if a particular candidate or campaign fails to register those accounts or platforms or media to the Comelec? What happens?
Well, of course, it'll make back checking their source a little more difficult, but we will continue to do the work anyway. Whether or not it's an election offense, it's a directory requirement. Basically, we're telling them to do it because it's more convenient for everyone, but it doesn't rise to the level of an election offense.
So this is not mandatory, but
not mandatory. It's a directory requirement. Yes.
So technically, they can ignore this.
They could, but then again, if they do ignore it, then we will let the public know. Because they will have to explain the ads that are coming out of all of these other websites, and the public will know that they did not follow the rules of the Comelec.
I understand at the end of this registration, the Comelec would provide verification stamps or something. You would verify those pages, for instance, right?
Well, we're working with the platforms to provide verification badges to candidates who are willing to avail of that process. It's very important because it allows us to fix accountability for the information that they put out. So yes, we will be helping them achieve that verification status.
Okay. Again, of course, we can expect a lot of them to abide by this directive by the Comelec, but of course, you can also expect reasonably that others would also ignore this for their own convenience. So, what if, let's say, a particular Twitter account or Facebook page continues to provide ads or to post ads about a particular candidate? You said that pattern would be instructive for the Comelec, no? To do some checking, right?
Yeah. Also, remember there are some formal requirements for filing their sources. No? There are reportorial requirements that are necessary for candidates to show. For example, you can't have someone just making expenditures for your campaign without your consent. So if you're having a website that is putting out campaign materials and you're not claiming to have given consent to it, and the claim of consent would be shown by registering that website, then you might have a problem. Then that might be an election offense, right? So in that case, it's not the fact of non-registration that is a problem. It's that the fact of non-registration points to a failure to comply with other formal and more stringent rules, again, such as the requirement for consent for election expenditures.
Okay.
So it's really all about the legalities of enforcing the SOSE.
Okay, so for example, a particular Facebook page continued to post updates or ads about a particular candidate, even if the candidate is not claiming ownership toward that particular
Yeah.
page, that can work potentially against him.
Yes.
That can be used by the Comelec against him.
Yes, because they can be held accountable for the expenditures of other people, right? Especially if it's clear that the expenditures are regular, if they are used to really push for the campaign of the candidate.
So the expenses for that particular page can be charged against the particular candidate.
Yes. Yes.
On the other hand, that can also be used to sabotage particular candidates, right? Let's say ako yung kalaban, I can
Right.
put up certain bogus accounts
Right.
and then
Which
put
is why-
certain token ads, di ba? Pwede yan.
Pwede yun, which is why it is in the interest of the candidates to defend themselves, basically by saying, that's not mine because these are my registered campaign sites. So if that's acting like a campaign outlet of mine, then think again, because I have registered campaign outlets. Again, there's no quick and easy formula for determining accountability, but a lot of this would probably be, you could call it circumstantial, and that would be necessary in determining whether or not these candidates have actually been complying with the SOSE rules.
And for instance, in the case of social media posts, how would you determine how much was spent for, let's say, a particular ad that was boosted on a particular page or account?
Well, we have access to the political ads library, for example, of one major advertising platform, and we do have arrangements with other platforms where they will be giving us summaries of the ads put out in the name of a particular candidate. No? So it will depend on whose information we're asking for, and historically we've been asking for everyone's information anyway. So we can get that information. So that basically, if you're looking at ads, for example, on Twitter, we could find out how many times your tweets have been boosted or have been promoted in the language of Twitter. The same way for a platform like Facebook.
How about those who would, let's say, tap the services of so-called influencers, yung mga celebrities? Di ba may kanya-kanyang mga YouTube channels yan, for instance, and then a candidate was interviewed in one of those channels, for example, how would you treat that?
Well, influencers are considered to be contractors. They provide a service, and therefore they will have reportorial requirements as well, such as, for example, giving contracts, certificates of consent, any sort of arrangement between them and the candidate. No? So in the best case, they will be forthright about this, and they'll be able to show these documents as part of their reporting. However, in cases where this is not so clear, then again, you'll fall back on the need to really discover whether or not a pattern exists. Like I said earlier, this sort of thing defies easy definition. There's no checklist to go against and say, "Ito, they did all of this, therefore ganito siya." Hindi ganun. It's a question of really determining whether or not expenditures have been made and how those expenditures should be counted against whoever they should be counted against.
Okay, so I suppose you will start counting and charging certain ads put up against particular candidates at the start of the campaign period.
At the start of the campaign period, and it helps that for example, Google has put a pause on their political ads campaigning, because then their political advertising, because then that will be like at least half of the work done. But we'll have to continue monitoring, of course, for political content, so that we'll know what's happening out there.
How about those candidates who had tapped the services of influencers and who had already posted those videos, those interviews, those obviously campaign materials before the start of the campaign period? And then when that starts, that's when the Comelec would start counting, right? but the
Yes.
videos that had been posted before that would still be on the platform.
I understand, but the way I understand it is if these ads or these materials trigger the AI of the platform, like for example Google, and it is flagged as a political ad, then it will still be taken down. So we have to be on the lookout for that as well.
Okay, there's a question for you, Director James Jimenez, from one of our viewers. How about a person or a group of persons who on their own decide to support a candidate online on a particular site?
Well, that's fine. How do you manifest your support? Again, if you show up pouring money into this campaign, then you would fall within the requirements to report these expenditures, right? If you're talking about a group of people who every day say, mabuhay si Christian, that might be a different story. But if you were to invest money in this campaign, then again, even if you're private individuals, it is possible that you will be part of the regulation. Again, as I said, candidates will have to accept these expenditures. You cannot spend money for the campaign just like that without having to get the consent of the candidate.
Okay. Again, we understand the difficulties as far as Comelec is concerned as to how to monitor these activities properly. Napakahirap, no? A few days ago, we had as a guest on this program a scholar who did a study on YouTube influence on election discourse, and pinag-usapan namin doon yung algorithmic communities.
Okay.
And certain candidates are actually taking advantage of that, had been taking advantage of that for quite some time now, no? Yung Comelec, how aware are you as to how certain candidates are using, for instance, this algorithmic communities on YouTube, which based on that study has been very, very effective for certain candidates?
Well, we're very aware, except that Christian, to be honest with you, monitoring this sort of thing isn't really in the Comelec's wheelhouse. Comelec is not a marketing agency, so we don't study marketing trends. But we are trying to keep abreast of new developments in this particular field because it is necessary. Things would be different perhaps if there were a law that were to be enacted that would govern this sort of thing. But until there is that law, really we're just trying to do the best that we can.
How many people do you have assigned to this particular job of monitoring all these expenses? On social media na lang, no? Huwag na natin isama yung television at saka radio, for instance, at saka print.
If I'm being generous, I'd say 10 people.
10 people. So parang yan din yung number nyo in 2019, no?
Yeah, it's the same. The vagaries of government hiring. It's really hard to justify more people and more people and more people. But it seems like 10 people now would be more effective, considering that we have broader partnerships and deeper partnerships with the platforms themselves. So we're able to do more with the same number of people than we used to before, especially when we were just starting.
And how was the experience in 2019 when you started monitoring this experience?
It was difficult. It was very difficult. Of course, there were times when we didn't know what to do with the information that we were getting. There were times when we would have to ask for guidance from people who were in the field who had no appreciation of what we were trying to do. But again, things have changed as people have begun to realize exactly the battlefield nature of social media. Then there have been more offers to help, and we're very grateful for that.
Was there also reasonable reporting on the part of candidates in their SOSE at the end of the 2019 midterm elections to include social media expenses?
Yes, actually, the candidates have also been very, credit where credit is due. A lot of candidates have been very forthright in their reporting, and they've been very cooperative as well. Even at a time when, if you remember, when the regulations came out, there were some few who were saying, they're going to challenge, that it is beyond the authority of the Comelec, etc. But no one ever did. Rather the reverse, people were very helpful. They were helping in the compliance and in the monitoring. So again, it's improving. Despite the lack of regulation, but still, I cannot get tired of saying that we need laws to govern this thing.
Okay. You said you would need laws to govern these things. So what
Yes.
exactly would you like to have
Well,
to make this to basically institutionalize this?
Well, the most important thing really is to establish frequency limits for the use of social media. As I have never tired of pointing out, for print, you can only print 3 times a week. For TV, radio, you have a limited number of minutes per station. No such regulation applies to social media. Perhaps it is time to have that sort of regulation applied to social media. Second, we would like to see more formal requirements for the use of influencers and troll farms. Maybe we don't call them troll farms, but the concept should be defined in law and therefore regulated by law. It's hard because what's happening now is that everything is being left for the Comelec to basically discover.
Yeah.
When you're the first through the wall, you're the one ending up with a bloody face. So that's what's happening with us now.
You're forced to fight the fight with with insufficient wherewithal.
And against a very flexible and innovative protagonist. Yes, definitely.
Okay. By the way, you also the Comelec also came out with a list, parang schedule of e-campaigning, e-rally. Okay.
E-rallies.
So this will start when? Next month, right?
It'll start February 8th for the national candidates, yes. And we came out with the verified page already. So we're going to ask for everyone's help to start following that page. We want to get a good number of followers on that page to ensure that people are able to watch the e-rallies of their candidates. This will help convince the candidates to minimize in-person campaigning. If you don't have Facebook, that's fine. We're going to cross-post it on various other platforms.
Nakalagay sa inyo, presidential candidates 10 minutes each, 3 slots a night, no? But how will you allocate those slots? Paano kayo pipili?
Raffle yan. Raffle. We're going to raffle the slots away and then just repeat the whole slate, all 9, 10, 11 of them, all the way to the end of the campaign period. So it'll just keep repeating. We'll just make sure that everyone gets the same number of slots over the campaign period.
Are there particular don'ts that you would have to remind candidates and their campaign people?
Well, we're gonna come out with a list of fair use guidelines, of course. But in general, really, we just want them to avoid using harmful or hateful language. But other than that, it is a campaign channel, basically covering their campaign rallies. So whatever they say at their campaign rallies, they should perhaps be free to say on our platform as well. Again, with limitations as to hate speech and speech that calls for the harming of any individual.
But negative campaigning is allowed. Let's say, don't vote for my opponent.
Absolutely. I think that might actually be a source of much entertainment in the coming days.
Okay, finally, before I let you go, Director James Jimenez, no, yung issue ng Comelec hacking. You issued a statement already about that. Pero is that a closed issue as far as Comelec is concerned? I think you were also called by the National Privacy Commission along with the tech team of the Manila Bulletin.
That's right. I think we have a schedule on January 25. So we're preparing for that. We will be giving them all of the information that we have. It's not a lot, but we will keep them updated as to what's going on. In the meantime, our validation efforts continue. And our commissioners are speaking with law enforcement to coordinate what we can do moving forward.
So meron ba o wala?
Wala kaming nakikita pa rin hanggang ngayon.
Na hacking?
Na hacking.
And did the Manila Bulletin tech team provide you with more data or information that they had supposedly unearthed?
Well, I believe that I am in receipt of an email from their team. I have not yet had the opportunity to check it. But we'll see what additional information they're providing.